So Adair and her sisters made small state guard flags from a worn sheet and painted on Missouri's bears and the state motto, Salus Populi Suprema Lex Esto, and waved them from the carriage in the stream of people going into town. The band played Maryland, My Maryland commendably well. The ladies of Doniphan brought fresh bunches of quill pens to the recruiters. They seemed to bear in their hands bouquets of goose feathers like formal presentations, and an urchin was employed to sit on the ground at the boots of the cavalry recruiter to cut the quills and hand them up. Ink flew. The men of the Missouri State Guard soon found themselves attached to the Confederate Army and sent to the east to fight. The newly elected officers stared in dismay at their orders, but orders were orders. All locally raised units, one after another, were loaded on steamers and ferries to cross the Mississippi, and the new soldiers marched on into Virginia and Tennessee. And the only people at home in the southeastern Ozarks were the women and the children. In the meantime, the federal forces moved thousands of troops into the Ozarks, other state troops from Illinois, Indiana, Colorado, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and Kansas. The Union Command also sent down from St. Louis the newly created Missouri Union Militia, and so these forces came down upon the southern counties unopposed. The militia was made up in the main of dubious characters from the St. Louis riverfront, and their officers knew where to send stolen goods and stolen horses, and they began to enrich themselves, and also to fight among themselves. With all the young men gone, the Missouri Union Militia began to take what they wanted from the people of the southeastern counties. Many of the young men who had joined up with the Missouri State Guard returned home after their 6-month enlistment and were determined never again to leave. They had had enough of war, and somebody was needed to protect their homes against the Union Militia and the other troops from the Midwestern states. They began to organize other veterans to counter the raids of the Federals. One of these units was Reeves's Independent Scouts, which attached itself to the CSA in order not to be regarded as guerrillas and therefore not under the protection of the rules of war. They determined to keep some semblance of order in the southeastern counties. Instead, they were once again sent off to fight with the Confederate Army at the Battle of Perryville, Kentucky, in 1862, and there is evidence that the entire unit mutinied, threatened to shoot their officers, and then returned to the Ozarks en masse. At home, Timothy Reeves once again organized a unit of volunteers and called it the 15th Missouri Cavalry, CSA, having extracted a promise from the Confederate command that they would never again be sent out of southeastern Missouri. He got that promise, and it was kept. Throughout 1861 and 1862, small units of the Union militia and Reeves's men clashed at the rivers and the crossing places. They fought among the rocky bluffs and the dense pines. The militia made forays and then retreated to the Union garrison at Iron Mountain, shut the doors of the fort behind them, and barred it. Reeves's men dispersed to their homes in the hills. The railroad came south from St. Louis as far as Iron Mountain, so that the Union militia could be supplied with all they needed from the city's army depots. Reeves's men were supplied by the women. They wore homespun uniforms and ate what they could shoot or grow. The Mrs. Parmalee took the plump Greek lady with her laurel wreath and her skewer and her brave motto and buried her beneath the manure pile. For if the Federal soldiers found the banner in their possession, they would set the house on fire. Adair Colley took the homemade State Guard flags and burned them in the fireplace. Then the regular Union Army came at the Christmas season of 1862, and at that time the Federal troops numbered 10,000 men. This was an army with infantry, artillery, and cavalry, a medical corps and commissary wagons, and a brass band. They came down from the garrison at the railhead at Iron Mountain, which was 120 miles to the north. The rattling, clanking column fed itself uneasily southward into the hills to dispense with the Confederates of the Ozarks once and for all. They were disciplined men, with responsible officers, but around them at the edges of the column the irregular Union militia floated and canted and harried the people like hawks. This army of 10,000 men under General Davidson camped at Doniphan Courthouse and stayed for 2 weeks and ate up and burnt up everything in the country. Some were regular U.S. Army and some were state troops from Iowa or Illinois or Wisconsin. The people of the southeastern Ozarks were astonished at this great army and the irrefutable power of the Union. Adair Colley, who was then 17, rode out to see them passing along the military trace and knew then that the northern armies were more powerful than anyone had imagined. Her father and her brother buried their supplies under the house. Casks